All right, hello and welcome everybody. Yes, come on in. We're going to have some people trickling in as we go here, but everybody, thank you for joining the webinar today. My name is Dylan. I am one of the account managers here at SFTP To Go, and today I'm actually going to be walking you through our secure cloud file storage and transfer service. And I'm going to actually be highlighting its key features and briefly demonstrate how it can simplify your storage, sharing, and integration processes. Okay, just a few housekeeping notes. So just a heads up, we are recording today's session, so we'll send the recording to your email afterwards so you can have it and watch it whenever you'd like, okay? Also, feel free to type in your questions in the chat below as we go along, and I'll have one of my moderators help me compile a short list of some of the most common questions, and I'll make sure to answer them at the end of the Q&A or at the end of the webinar in our Q&A session, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. Yes, guys, please, quick reminder. Thank you for reminding me. Quick reminder, please have yourself on mute as a show of respect for everybody involved. We're all taking the time to be here today, and let's make the best use of it. So, what we're going to be covering today is a quick intro and overview. Oh, sorry about that. What we're going to be covering today is a quick intro and overview of SFTP To Go. We're going to be covering the security and credentials setup, how to securely set up your credentials. We're going to be talking about establishing a secure SFTP connection. We're also going to be talking about web portal setup and connectivity. So basically, setting up the web portal and ensuring a smooth connectivity from any device. And we're also going to be touching on automation. We're going to be covering our webhooks as well as our API options. And then lastly, we're going to show some additional customization and setup options, the most common ones across all of our new customers. And yeah, so let's go ahead and dive. Also at the end, we're going to have some time. I'm going to leave some time at the end to have a brief Q&A session to answer those common questions, okay? All right. So, as a brief intro, I like to let people know where we came from, who we are. So, SFTP To Go was launched in 2019 and as our first product from Crazy Ant Labs, and it's used daily by over 1,000 companies and organizations worldwide across all different industries, including ones like healthcare, finance, real estate, and even manufacturing, just to name a few here. Okay. And moving on. All right, so we have three foundational pillars that we built SFTP To Go around, okay? So we have security, simplicity, and awesome support. Now, obviously, security, this is our very first priority, okay? Because we know that your data is the very lifeblood of your organization, and we really have one task here, and that's to keep your data secure over the wire and at rest, okay? And then the next is simplicity. From our pricing model to any aspect of the product, we really like to keep things straightforward, simple, and transparent because look, we get it. Business can be complex. So adding in another complex, service, another complex system, workflow, whatever, just makes things even more complex. So, in light of that, we decided to go with a simple approach. Sometimes being a jack of all trades is not the best thing, or not the best option here. And then lastly, we have awesome support. Because look, we know that even though this product is simple, sometimes you may just need someone to assist you. And that's why we have the very best and friendliest support team available through our in-app chat and even direct email. Okay. We have a whole team of people just ready to help you guys out. All right. So I covered the brief intro. I'm going to quickly move on over to the credentials tab. Okay, so we're gonna get started here. All right, so after you sign up to SFTP To Go and log in, you're gonna land on the admin dashboard here, okay? Am I sharing this? I'm going to make sure I'm sharing this quick. Yes, I am. Okay. It's going to be starting on the credentials tab. Okay. So, a brief overview. Credentials are what we call the users who have access to your storage. Okay. Now, they can't manage your SFTP To Go organization, meaning they can't manage other credentials, automations, webhooks, settings, or even billing. Okay. And initially, you have the one root credential with access to the entire storage, okay, which is right here. It even says root. Okay, so by default, you're going to be provisioned this one root credential. Now, there are several ways to use the credentials to access your storage. Now, you can use these credentials with any FTP client or even with our web portal that I'll show you here in just a few minutes. Now, I'm going to start by demonstrating how exactly to connect to my SFTP To Go storage using FileZilla. But keep in mind, this works exactly the same with any other FTP client, such as WinSCP, CyberDuck, or even command line clients, and many others, okay? But those are some pretty common ones that I wanted to highlight. Now, I'm going to expand the credentials. So we have hit the credential tab here. I'm going to go ahead and expand this using the little arrow. And what you're going to want to use to connect via an SFTP connection using an FTP client is really just three things, okay? It's going to be your username, your password, and your host name, okay? Now these, when you create your credential, these are automatically populated. Okay, you can give it a different username and you can reset the password and make it whatever you want. But by default, we create a very long, random set of numbers and letters, or even just letters for the password. Okay. And I'll show you how to, change this up later on in this webinar. Okay, guys. Now, so before I go over to FileZilla, I'm going to briefly mention, look, so we're going to use the username, the password, and the host name. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste all of these three things into FileZilla. Okay, I'm going to switch over to FileZilla now. Okay. Okay. All right, let me get over to, oh, you can see FileZilla. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to copy and paste the username. Okay. Copy, paste username. We're going to copy and paste the password. Copy and paste password. Okay, lastly, we're going to copy and paste the host name. Copy, paste the host name. Okay, another quick thing to point out here, the standard port for SFTP is always going to be 22. Okay, you can also with SFTP To Go, you can also use port 21 for an FTPS connection. But primarily, a lot of businesses, everybody primarily uses port 22 for SFTP. Okay, pretty simple. Port 22, quick connect. Okay, just a second here. And voila, we are in, we're ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna do something real quick. I'm gonna delete this. Don't worry, I'm gonna make a new one so I can show you how to do it. Okay. Okay. So in FileZilla here, you can actually see the files on your local host, your computer, okay? The one you're using to connect. So in FileZilla, you can see the files on the local host on the left-hand side here. And then the files on your SFTP To Go storage on the right-hand side. So at this stage, we have nothing in here because we've just started. So let's create a folder by right-clicking on the servers pane and clicking Create Directory. So right-click, Create Directory. I'm just going to name it new directory. Okay, voila. We have a new folder named new directory. Okay, so to upload files, simply drag and drop the files from the computer to the SFTP To Go storage right side of the pane on FileZilla. Okay, so I'm gonna go to I'm gonna go ahead and grab the SFTP To Go logo. So I'm in my own, my Finder on my MacBook. I'm gonna click and hold the SFTP To Go logo, drag and drop. And boom, there it is. Okay. Now, the SFTP protocol encrypts all communications between the client and the server. So, in addition, files are encrypted at rest on SFTP To Go. So, in the same manner, we uploaded the SFTP To Go logo or any files, but in this instance, the SFTP To Go logo. You can download the files by dragging them in the opposite direction. It's really that simple, guys. So if you want to download, just click, drag, and place it wherever you want it to go, okay? And that's it. So going back to the admin dashboard here. Now, one thing to point out, if you're behind a restricted private network, you can click here on View IP addresses to get the static IPs assigned to your designated host and add them to your firewall's outbound rules to allow access to SFTP To Go. Okay, moving on. Now, you can also customize your host name by adding a CNAME record in your domain. So that instead of one of our host names, you can actually use something like, sftp.yourdomain.com. Okay, and to do that, simply under the host, simply click here, and it's going to automatically populate where you need to add your domain. Okay, so I'll just type in, so you could just type in the subdomain instead of our SFTP domain. So I'll type in something like my storage.mydomain. Okay, hey, thank you guys. Yes, thank you so much for being here. We got some more people trickling in. Totally okay. We're going to send them the recording. If you guys don't mind, please put any questions you have as we go along in the chat, and we're going to go ahead and get to as many of those as possible at the end as we wrap up. Thank you. Also, mute yourselves, please. Thank you. So mystorage.mydomain.com, add domain. Okay. I'm going to expand. And as you can see, it's pending. Okay. And that's essentially how you do that. So there's information here on what to add in your DNS manager. You can simply go to the documentations page. Let's see. Right here, domains. And it's all documented here on a documentations page. So feel free to check this out afterwards. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out and we can hop on one-on-one and take care of this for you. Okay, so once you did that, you can set this as your default domain. So it'll show it'll show your domain instead of the default domain. Okay. So going back to the credentials tab. Now, in addition to username and password authentication, you can also use public key authentication. Now, to do this, import SSH key to a credential by copying the content of a public key and pasting it here. Okay? Import SSH key. And again, we have documentation covering all of this. Let me just show you real quick where it's at. It's under security, using SSH key authentication, and bam, walks you through step by step how to do this. Okay. Now, this is considered more secure than password authentication because no secret has to be shared. Okay. This is something to point out here. Now, another very important security feature we have here is inbound network rules. Now, you can specify that a certain user or all users can only connect to the storage from certain IP addresses and block access from any other IP address. Now, this is available in certain plans though, so please check out our pricing plans for more information. This is how you do it. Add inbound rule, and you can customize the IP address here. All protocols, you only want to customize and make an inbound rule for SFTP or web portal or FTPS. Okay, now our service is based on Amazon Web Services, okay? So utilizing Amazon S3 as our highly scalable and reliable storage. Now, depending on your plan, you may also have direct access to files using the S3 protocol. So you can check that out here. Now, you're probably going to need more than just the root credential though, and you'd want to allow different users access to different parts of your storage. Now, to add more users, I'm going to show you how to quickly add a credential. Okay, so scroll up to the top, add credential. Define a username. Now, this has to be unique across our service. You can also leave it blank and get a very long and unique random name. It's, whatever your preference is. Some people like to keep a very detailed, what am I trying to say here? Some people like to name them according to departments, according to roles, whatever that may be. Okay, now the same goes for the home directory. Now, if you leave it empty, we will fill it out for you by default. Each user is assigned its own home directory. So this is what they'll see as their root. So they can't go up or sideways. They can only see the files within their home directory. Now, if we click Learn More, we can go back to our docs and see the different scenarios you can set up. So isolated home folders, as you can see, this is what it would look like to give you a brief overview. We have shared folders where multiple users have access to the same shared folder, or even nested folders, okay, where some users have access to a certain folder and everything in it, while other users have access to their folders nested within that folder. So they can only see the files while the former users can view everybody's files. So within their own home folder. Now I'll set the home directory to the directory we created before uploading the files. So I'll use the folder browser to select test. Let's see here. So for instance, you can make it look like this, /home/sales. Or that's not how you spell sales. Or maybe you can even get more granular with it. /home/sales/Dylan, for example. So only I would have access to the sales folder and only my stuff within the sales folder. So for the sake of simplicity here, moving on to the permissions, users have permissions for their own home directory. Okay, so not at the file level, but their own home directory. So I won't go through the entire list of permissions here, but they're pretty self-explanatory. And if you need more information, you can simply click this link to learn more right here, or right here rather. So I'm just going to leave it like this. I'll give it a username. Let's go, let's see, Dylan dash demo, home/demo/Dylan, something like that. Add credential. Now, you can add SSH keys or even set up an inbound network rules for the new user in the same manner I showed you with the root credential. So, clicking on the credential, scrolling down, this is where you would import the SSH key for the specific user. And this is where you would, add the inbound network rule for this specific user. Okay. Now, moving on to passwords. Passwords are actually generated automatically when the credentials are created. So according to your organization's password policy, you can change this, make it look however you want, but I'm going to quickly show you how to change the password. There's a few different ways to do this. Now, I'm on the credential tab of the credential that I just created. I'm going to go over here to the right on this little menu button, these three little dots. I'm going to click it. Now you have a few different options here, okay? Now this only pertains to this specific credential. So you can edit the credential from here, set a new password, which we're about to do, import the SSH key, view the audit logs for this specific credential so you can see whatever they're doing, and open the web portal. But right now, I'm going to set the password. Use a custom password. Voila. So that's how you change the password, but to change the password policy, I'm going to go over here to settings. Up here at the top, in the security box here, go down to password policy, expand, and you have some options here. Minimum requirements, medium, strict, and then even custom, okay? Now, while I'm here, I want to cover audit logs. Now, audit logs are a crucial security feature we offer, and basically they record every activity in your storage. So whenever a user logs in, let me just go to this real quick. So whenever a user logs in, uploads, downloads, deletes a file, logs out, or even fails to perform any of these actions. Now, an event is captured in the audit log detailing who did what and when. Now you can access these logs for specific users from the credentials tab, like I showed you earlier, or you can access it here covering the entire storage. Okay, giving you a very detailed view of what's going on. I'm going to show you. So this is the entire storage, all credentials, all users. Now, if I just want to see what the specific credential is doing, I'll just go to the credential, click the menu button, view audit logs. Now this will allow me to view just what Dylan-demo is doing. Okay. Okay. So now we've covered, oh, one more thing. We got to show the range filter in the audit logs. Okay, so now keep in mind, according to your plan, audit logs are retained for up to 90 days. Now there's different variations based on your plan, so be on the lookout for that. And up here, this is where you can filter. So if you don't know where something is coming from, or if you want to look up just one specific credential, you can go here to the organization-wide audit log. Click on the username, session ID, timestamp, when did it happen, when did you think it happened, and you can search that way. Okay? All right, so we've covered how to manage credentials and how to use them with FTP clients. But that's not the only way to connect to your storage, okay? Now, SFTP To Go's web portal allows you and your users to manage and access files from the convenience of your web browser. So one thing to keep in mind here, I'm going to go ahead and go down since I'm already in the settings tab. Scroll down to the web portal box. Now, one thing to point out here, by default, it is turned off. So if you want to use it, go ahead and make sure that you go to the Settings tab, scroll down to the Web Portal box, click Activate or Active. So now the web portal is completely responsive on all devices, so it works well on mobile devices too, and even supports dark mode. Okay. Now, now there's some things you can do with your web portal. You can customize it. Obviously, you can customize. So this is the URL that you would send your client or your vendor or your department. This is where they would go to log in. For example, this is what it would look like. I'm going to go ahead and click this. And this is what they would see. Okay. Oh, whoops. Don't want to do that. Okay. So that is what they would see. Now you can customize the domain, like I mentioned earlier, by going up here to the network box, going to the domains, and adding a domain and making sure you select web portal. Okay. And then add the domain and then go through the process and configure your domain, your CNAME rather, on your DNS provider page. Okay, and a few other options here I want to point out. You can totally customize the public business information for your web portal page, business name, website, give it a headline, um, enter in your policies, your term of service, whatever you want. And also, you have the ability to set the branding, get a little more customization, and get a better feel for your brand instead of SFTP to go. So set your branding. I went over here, expand. You can add your icon or your favicon. You can add your logo. You can get rid of the subtle SFTP to go website text. You have a few options here to change the color and save and set live. Now, let's see here. Yeah, one sec. Yeah, guys, that's fine. Yeah, guys, if you have to head out, it's totally fine. Like I said in the beginning here, we're going to send over a recording of this webinar here today, so you're going to have it on file whenever you need it. Okay? Now, I'm going to go back to the credentials tab. Now, your users will use their username and password when logging into the web portal, but if you like to see what your users are seeing, you can go back here to the credentials tab. I'm on the credential that I created. Go over here to the menu button. You have your different options here, but I'm going to go down to Open Web Portal. Yes. Now, this is what your client, your vendor, your department is going to see on their end when they log into the web portal. Okay, so based on what permissions you provision to them, they're only going to be able to download, upload, create a new file. You know, whatever your permissions are set for, this is what they will have. And like I said earlier, it appears to them as root. Okay, so they can't go up, they can't go sideways, they can't see other people's credentials. They can only see what's inside their directory that you provisioned them. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the dashboard. All right, so I want to touch on the file browser tab. Okay. Now the file browser tab in the admin dashboard it's simply the web portal embedded in the admin dashboard, and it uses root credentials. So essentially you have access to the entire storage from the convenience of your own admin dashboard. Okay. So moving on to automations. Now to set up automations or notifications, we're going to go over here to the webhooks tab. Okay, this is where we can set up real-time notifications, and these can even trigger processes and workflows on other systems like Zapier, Make.com, Boomi, MuleSoft, or even custom code. Or even just notify the team about any changes in the file system, whenever files are uploaded, deleted, or downloaded. You can get notifications sent via email, Teams, Slack, and of course the typical webhook to trigger different events. Now to add a webhook, click on this button right here, Add Webhook, give it a name, Dylan's Hook, or Dylan Hook. How about Dylan Webhook? Let's make it simple. Okay, select an endpoint. And for I'm actually going to show you what this looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to a website called webhook.site. I'm going to grab this URL. Copy, paste. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate this. Basically, webhook.site just really allows you to test and verify the webhook easily, make sure everything is working correctly. Now I copied the unique URL and I pasted it here in the endpoint section. Okay. And like I mentioned earlier, you have a few options here to be notified on specific things. Okay, so let's say you want to be notified only when a file is uploaded. Bam. Or maybe you want to get notified when only someone downloads a file. Bam. Okay, maybe you just want to be notified when someone from a specific path or a specific IP or someone very specific or something very specific, and this is where you would do it. You can filter the rule. Okay? You can even give it a header and give it a name so it's easier to track or easier to look up, rather. Okay? So, another thing to touch on here with the filters, I don't want to get, let's say I don't want to get a notification about just any file, for example, only files in a specific folder or with a certain extension or even touched by a certain user. Okay? And that's where you would do this. And then add webhook. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that. Okay, Dylan webhooks. This is the one I just created, okay? Let's see. Now, to test this, I'm on this webhook right here that I just created. I'm gonna go over here to the menu button. There's a few options: edit, duplicate, rotate the secret code, pause it, and test it. Okay, I'm gonna click test. Okay, this box is gonna pop up. I'm gonna click trigger ping event. Okay, I'm gonna go back over here to the webhook.site, and as you can see, it was successful. So on the other hand, if you want to set up just an email or Slack notification instead, you'll actually get a human readable text or email letting you know, hey, this person from here did this, and here it is, type of thing. Okay. All right, so in addition to webhooks, SFTP To Go also supports REST APIs, and which pretty much manage everything I showed you programmatically. And you can even find, I know, sorry, I messed that up. I'm glad I could help you guys. Um, and you can even find more information about them in our documentation here. I'm going to quickly show you. See where that documentation is at. Nope, that's not it. Automation, we got with the webhooks, email notifications, detailing how to do this, and then management APIs, which will take you here. Okay. So extensive documentation for you guys. All right. So we just covered webhooks. Now there's a few bits and pieces we haven't gone over in the settings tab. So I'm gonna head over to the settings tab. Now we've mentioned the password policy when we change the credentials password. Now this is where, as I mentioned before, this is where you would change the password policy for your entire organization. Now you can use a preset a preset or set your own policy. Okay. Now remember that existing passwords remain intact and the password policy will kick in only when you rotate passwords for existing users or create new credentials. So we've gone through the audit logs, domains, inbound network rules, and web portal already. We're going to scroll down to find usage and metrics. Okay. Usage and metrics that show your current usage, how much storage you're using, and what's your monthly bandwidth. Now, this is also where you can open up the billing portal right here to change your billing details, payment methods, or even upgrade or downgrade your plan accordingly. Now, in the last section here, you have the ability to invite more people to help you manage SFTP to go. Now, remember that this is very important. There may be some confusion here, but remember that credentials are only used to access files. But if you need to invite more people to help manage credentials or webhooks, this right here is where you would do that. This is where you would add them. You know, you can even check who enabled multi-factor authentication from here. But to do this, essentially, remember I'm in the settings tab. Scroll all the way down to the access box where it says teammates, invite member. Let's say I want to invite John. Type in John's email address, john@gmail.com, for example. And let's make him an owner. Has access to everything. But coming soon, and then soon enough, we'll have access to provision a member and just a billing manager. Now, to enable, yeah, one more thing before we get on to the Q&A, guys. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. Again, to enable multi-factor authentication yourself, scroll up here, click your avatar, go to account settings, and scroll down here to security. And this is where you would enable multi-factor authentication. As you can see, I already have it on, so there's no reason for me to go through this process again. But very simple. You would just use a authenticator app, maybe like Google Authenticator or Microsoft has one. There's many of them out there, okay? But this is where you would do it. And this is also where you can see your other organizations, you know, a little bit extra details found here, but not much. Okay, I'm gonna go back. All right, so before we wrap up here, let's go ahead and answer some questions. You guys, thank you so much for all the questions. Thank you guys for all these questions. This is gonna help not only us help you guys, but help you guys help each other. Okay, so first question here. Yeah, thank you, Sagi. First question, can I have a user other than root that can access the root folder? Yes, you can assign read and write permissions to a credential and set the credentials folder as root. However, we don't usually recommend this. It is always better to have all other home directories nested in a folder that this user has set as the home directory. This way, if you need to use SFTP to go for another use case in the future, you won't have to change your folder structure. Okay? I hope that answered your question. Thank you so much for that. All right, next question. Okay, how can I replace my host name with ours by adding a CNAME record. Okay, so as I mentioned before, you can change the host name. Let me go ahead and get in this. Host right here. You can change the host name and use your own subdomain by adding a CNAME record in your domain's DNS settings. Okay, so click here. Okay, scroll down to the network box. Oh, actually, so it's going to pop up for you. Okay, and then enter in your domain, let's see, mystorage.mydomain.com. Okay, add domain. Then once you do that, once it's verified, you're going to then follow these instructions on your DNS provider page. Okay, so log into your domain register's website, navigate to the DNS management section, which is typically found under domain management or even DNS settings. Next, you're going to find the option to add a new record. Choose CNAME as the type of record, and then enter in the details. So the name, enter in the subdomain you want to use for this. So example, sftp.yourdomain.com, for example, pretty common. Okay, and then you want to set the target. You're going to enter in the host name provided by SFTP To Go. So for example, it's your/sftp.sftp2go.com, for example. And then you would simply save the record. So one thing to note here, it may take a few minutes to a few hours for the DNS changes to propagate. So just hang tight, refresh, maybe go do something else. But don't be alarmed if it doesn't switch over right away. All right, yeah, I think we have time for one more question, guys. Thank you so much. And again, if we didn't cover your questions here, feel free to reach out to me after this. We can set up a one-on-one and we can go more in depth on your specific use case. Okay, guys? All right, last question. Can I limit access to specific IP addresses? And yes, you can actually limit access to your SFTP To Go server by specifying IP address restrictions. And this can be done by setting up firewall rules to only allow connections from specific IP addresses. Now, to configure this at the credential level, I'm going to show you. Go to the Credentials tab. The credential that I created, Dylan Demo. I'm going to go down to Inbound Rules, and this is where you would make the change. Okay. Now, if you would like to use the same rules for all credentials, you would go to Settings, scroll down to Network, the network box here, and now Inbound Rules, expand. As you can see, I have a rule to accept all traffic. As you can see, I have the entire internet, all inbound traffic from anywhere. Okay, and this is where you would do that. All right, guys. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm really glad that we're able to help you guys, and I'm just blown away by the turnout here today, guys. You guys rock. Okay, so feel free to reach out to us, to me, for a personalized demo, or if you need further assistance, we're always here to help, guys. And thank you very much for joining today's webinar. I hope you have a great, fantastic day. See ya.